Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to officially start this book. Now technically this is the second video, I know, but this is the book where this is the video where we actually start to read it properly, not just the preface or the beginning bit. So shall we? Chapter 1. Freud, Penfield and Byrne. Throughout history, one impression of human nature has been consistent, that man has a multiple nature. I have no idea what that means. Most often, it has been expressed as a dual nature. It has been expressed mythologically, philosophically and religiously. Always it has been seen as a conflict between good and evil, the lower nature and the higher nature, the inner man and the outer man. There are times, said Somerset Maugham, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, when I look over the various parts of my character with perplexity, I recognise that I am made up of several persons, and that the person that at the moment has the upper hand will inevitably give place to another. But which is the real one? All of them or none? Now, this actually does need mentioning, because this actually coincides with what I was on about before in my previous video where I spoke about being a moron. You know the one, because the title is literally I'm a moron. Well, that's part of the title. I think the title was I'm Getting Better, also I'm a moron. And if you remember that video, I spoke about getting rid of the old self and letting in the new self. If you remember, see. Now this person's talking about several different people inside of you. Because several versions of you is like old you, new you, and there's certain ones in between. It's like there's scared me, new me, brave me, and all that lot. And what the book says is, I'm guessing what they're trying to say is that I think all these people inside of you, who are you, will take turns being in charge. I think that's what they're trying to say. But it just made me think about, how I was talking about old me and new me. And how new me isn't really a different person, it's just me. Because it's always me. Old me is not a real person. Old me is just me in the past. New me is me now. I think that makes sense. Hope I'm making sense, people. I'm going to get back to the book now. Otherwise, we'll never finish this book. Now, where was I? Ah, here we go. That man can aspire to and achieve goodness is evident through all of history. However, that goodness may be understood. Moses saw goodness supremely as justice, Plato essentially as wisdom, and Jesus centrally as love. Yet they all agreed that virtue, however understood, was consistently undermined by something in human nature, which was at war with something else. But what were these somethings? When Sigmund Freud appeared on the scene in the early 20th century, the enigma was subjected to a new probe. The discipline of scientific inquiry. Freud's fundamental contribution was his theory that the warring factions existed in the unconscious. Tentative names were given to the combatants. The superego became thought of as the restrictive, controlling force over the instinctual drives, with the ego as a referee operating out of enlightened self-interest. A lot of big words there, people. A lot of big words. And ironically, the author was talking about how he didn't want to put this in big words, so I dread to think what other people would be writing about it. We are deeply indebted to Freud for his painstaking and pioneering efforts to establish the theoretical foundation upon which we build today. Through the years, scholars and clinicians have elaborated, systematized, and added to his theories. Yet the persons within have remained elusive, and it seems that the hundreds of volumes which collect dust and the annotations of psychoanalytic thinkers have not provided adequate answers to the persons they are written about. I stood in the lobby of a theatre at the end of a showing of the motion picture Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and listened to a number of comments by people who had just seen the picture. I'm exhausted, and I come to the movies to get away from home. Why do they want to show something like that? I didn't get it. I guess you had to be a psychologist. I got the impression that many of these people left the theatre wondering what was really going on. Sure, there must have been a message, but I'm unable to find anything relevant to them or liberating in terms of how to end fun and games in their own lives. I never saw Virginia Woolf. I haven't seen any of the film adaptations. I'm sure there's more than one. I haven't read the book either. So I really have nothing to add to that. We are dutifully impressed by formulations such as Freud's definition of a psychoanalysis as a dynamic conception which reduces mental life to an interplay of reciprocally urging and checking forces. Such a definition and its countless elaborations may be useful to the professionals, but how useful are these formulations to people who hurt? George and Martha in Edward Albee's play used red-hot, gutsy four-letter words that were precise and to the point. The question is, as therapists, can we speak with George and Martha as precisely and pointedly about why they act as they do and hurt as they do? Can what we say be not only one true, but also helpful because we are understood? Speak English. I can't understand a word you're saying. It's not an uncommonly held attitude towards persons who claim to be experts in the psychological fields. Restating esoteric psychoanalytic ideas in even more esoteric terms does not reach people where they live. As a consequence, the reflections of ordinary folk are often expressed in pitiful redundancies and in superficial conversation with such summary comments as, "Well, isn't that always the way?" No understanding of how it can be different. Now, I should point out there's no real... It's not like You're Awesome, okay? Or the last book about OCD, where there's big gaps. It's literally this. All the way through. And I'll show you. See? See? That's another bit like that. So this is going to be a very long series, people. A very long series. I think I may do read another book in between as well, because this is going to take a while and it's very long-winded. But I've started, so I will finish it. If it does take me like a year or something. On with the book now. In a sense, one of the estranging factors of the present day is the lag between specialization and communication, which continues to widen the gulf between specialists and non-specialists. Space belongs to the astronauts. Understanding human behavior belongs to the psychologists and psychiatrists. Legislation belongs to the congressman. And whether or not we should have a baby belongs to the theologians. Does it? I thought theologians were like religious scholars, people that study religious stuff. Why would they decide whether you have a baby or not? Am I missing something here, people? Maybe. I'm going to carry on reading and try not to think about it. This is an understandable development, yet the problems of non-understanding and non-communication are so great that means must be devised whereby language can keep up with the developments of research. In the field of mathematics, an answer to this dilemma was attempted in the development of the new mathematics, now being taught in elementary schools throughout the country. The new mathematics is not so much a new form of computation as of communication of mathematical ideas, answering questions not only of what, but also of why, that the excitement of going to the moon or using a computer will not remain exclusively in the realm of scientists, but can also exist in comprehensible form for the student. The science of mathematics is not new, but the way it is talked about is new. We would find ourselves handicapped if we were still to use the Babylonian, Mayan, Egyptian, or Roman number systems. Okay. I get yes, number system, yes. I know the Roman system is like 1, 1, or I, and all that lot. II moment is 3, by the way. I get what they're trying to say. The desire to use mathematics creatively brought about new ways of systematizing numbering concepts. The new mathematics of today has continued this creative growth. We recognize and appreciate the creative thinking which the earlier systems represented, but we do not encumber today's work with those now less cost-effective methods. I say it doesn't say cost-effective, it says, sorry, let me read that sentence again. We recognize and appreciate the creative thinking which the earlier systems represented, but we do not encumber today's work with those now less effective methods. This is my position with regard to transactional analysis. I respect the devoted effort of the psychoanalytic theorists of the past. What I hope to demonstrate in this book is a new way to state old ideas and a clear way to present new ones, not as inimical or depreciating assault on the work of the past, but rather as a means of meeting the undeniable evidence that the old methods do not seem to be working very well. Once an old farmer tinkering with a rusty harrow on a country road was approached by an earnest young man from the University Extension Service who was making farm-to-farm calls for the purpose of selling a new manual on soil conservation and new farming techniques. After a polite and polished speech, the young man asked if he would like to buy this book, to which the old man replied, "Son, I don't farm half as good as I know how already." Not sure what that means. The purpose of this book is not only the presentation of new data, but also an answer to the question of why people do not live as good as they know how already. They may know that the experts have had a lot to say about human behaviour, but this knowledge does not seem to have the slightest effect on their hangover, their splintering marriage, or their cranky children. They may turn to agony columns for help, or find themselves delightfully portrayed in Peanuts. That's the Snoopy comics to you younger people watching or listening, I should say. Peanuts is the actual name of the comic, but when I grew up, and I imagine people younger than me grew up, it was just known as Snoopy, because it mostly centered around the dog and the kids were just background characters to it all. If you're interested, look it up. I'm not going to go into more detail. What was it? Oh, I'm going to start this sentence again. They may turn to agony columns for help, or find themselves delightfully portrayed in Peanuts, but is there anything both profound and simple related to the dynamics of behaviour which will help them find new answers to old problems? Is there any information available which is both true and helpful? Our search for answers has, until recent years, been limited by the fact that we have known relatively little about how the human brain stores memory and how this memory is evoked to produce the tyranny as well as the treasure of the past and current living. The brain surgeon with the probe. A new hypothesis must depend for its verification on observable evidence. Until recently, there has been little evidence about how the brain functions in cognition, precisely how and which of the 12 billion cells within the brain store memory. How much memory is retained? Can it disappear? Is memory generalized or specific? Why are some memories more available for recall than others? Now that's actually something I'd like to know. Why do I remember random useless bits of information but forget important things? This book might have an explanation. One noted explorer in this field is Dr. Wilder Penfield, a neurosurgeon from McGill University in Montreal, who in 1951 began to produce exciting evidence to confirm and modify theoretical concepts, which have been formulated in answer to these questions. During the course of brain surgery in treating patients suffering from focal epilepsy, Penfield conducted a series of experiments during which he touched the temporal cortex of the brain of the patients with a weak electric current transmitted through a galvanic probe. His observations of the responses to these simulations were accumulated over a period of several years. In each case, the patient under local anesthesia was fully conscious during the exploration of the cerebral cortex and was able to talk with Penfield. In the course of these experiments, he heard some amazing things. Inasmuch as this book is meant to be a practical guide to transactional analysis and not a technical scientific treatise, I wish to clarify that the following material from Penfield's research, the only material in this book which might be seen as technical, is included in the first chapter because I believe it is essential to the establishment of the scientific basis of all that follows. The evidence seems to indicate that everything which has been in our conscious awareness is recorded in detail and stored in the brain, and is capable of being played back in the present. The following material may warrant more than a single reading for a full appreciation of the implications of Penfield's findings. Penfield found that the stimulating electrode could force recollections clearly derived from the patient's memory. Penfield reported, the physical experience thus produced stops when the electrode is withdrawn and may repeat itself when the electrode is reapplied. He gave the following examples. First is the case of SB, stimulation at point 19 in the first convolution of the right temporal lobe caused him to say, "There was a piano there and someone was playing. I could hear the song, you know." When the point was stimulated again without warning, he said, "Someone speaking to another," and he mentioned a name, but I could not understand it. It was just like a dream. The point was stimulated a third time, also without warning. He then observed spontaneously, "Yes, oh Marie, oh Marie, someone is singing it." I don't know that song. I might actually look it up on YouTube. If I do, there'll be a link in the description if you want to hear it. When the point was stimulated a fourth time, he heard the same song and explained that it was the theme song of a certain radio program. Okay. When point 16 was stimulated, he said, while the electrode was being held in place, someone brings back a memory. I could see 7-Up Bottling Company, House and Bakery. He was then warned that he was being stimulated, but the electrode was not applied. He replied, "Nothing." So electricity helps with memories, apparently. That's what I'm getting from this so far. When point 16 was simulated, he said, while the electrode was being held in place, someone brings back a memory. I just read that bit. What am I doing? What am I like, eh? When in another case, that of DF, a point on the superior surface of the right temporal lobe was simulated within the fissure of Sylvius. The patient heard a specific popular song being played as though by an orchestra. Repeated stimulations reproduced the same music, while the electrode was kept in place. She hummed the tune chorus and verse, thus accompanying the music she heard. The patient LG was caused to experience something, he said, that had happened to him before. Simulation at another temporal point caused him to see a man and a dog walking along a road near his home in the country. Another woman heard a voice which she did not quite understand when the first temporal convolution was stimulated initially. When the electrode was reapplied to approximately the same point, she heard a voice distinctly calling, "Jimmy? Jimmy." Jimmy was the nickname of the young husband to whom she had married recently. That's nice. One of Penfield's significant conclusions was that the electrode evoked a single recollection, not a mixture of memories or a generalization. Another of his conclusions was that the response to the electrode was involuntary. And that appeals where we're going to leave it tonight. Now, I appreciate that this book is quite in depth, but it's supposed to be a pretty good book, so we're going to slowly get through this. And when I say slowly, I mean slowly. I'll be reading this book, and there will be readings of other books too, in between, just to break it up a bit, so it's a bit less, Right, I'm gonna have to love you and leave you all because it's my bedtime. Well, it's past my bedtime, actually. I do need to sleep, though. But anyway, I'm going to leave you all. So until next time, people, take care of yourselves, okay? Bye.